What if the real secret to a successful life has almost nothing to do with your IQ or your grades? Well, today we're going to break down a powerful idea from the legendary investor Warren Buffett, one that completely reframes what it means to succeed in your career and really, in your life.
You know, we're often taught that success comes from raw intelligence, or maybe top marks in school. But Warren Buffett really pushes back on that. He suggests that the true predictors of lifelong success are found in something much, much deeper, something that you just can't measure on a test. Now look, intellect and energy are absolutely important. Of course they are. They're what gets your foot in the door. But according to Buffett, they aren't what determine where you ultimately end up. There's a whole different set of qualities at play, and these are the ones with far more power to predict how your life will unfold.
To get his point across, Buffett uses a simple but really powerful thought experiment. He calls it the 10% ownership test, and it's a fascinating way to think about human value from an investor's point of view.
Okay, here's the setup. Imagine you have the chance to buy a 10% stake in the future earnings of just one of your classmates, and that stake lasts for their entire life. Who do you pick? Now, Buffett adds a condition. You can't just pick the person with the richest dad. You have to bet on their personal qualities alone. All of a sudden, it's not about the highest IQ, is it? It's about something else entirely.
When you really think about it, you'd probably find yourself drawn to someone with admirable personal qualities. You'd likely choose the person who shows leadership, who is generous and honest, the one who gives credit where it's due. You're not investing in their resume anymore, you're investing in their character.
But this is where Buffett adds a really interesting twist to the experiment. He says you also have to go short on one classmate. That means you're betting against their future success. And this forces you to think about the qualities that repel value over the long term.
So who would you bet against? You'd probably pick the person whose behavior just pushes people away. You'd short the person who's egotistical, greedy, or dishonest. These are the kinds of traits that over time destroy opportunities and make it impossible for others to want to work with you.
And this brings us to the most important point of all. Buffett insists that these qualities, both the good ones and the bad ones, are not things you're just born with. They are behaviors, they are habits, and you choose them. This quote just captures it perfectly. These habits are so small at first, you don't even feel them, until one day they define who you are.
Now, this isn't just a theoretical exercise. The consequences of these negative traits play out in the real world all the time. A perfect and really cautionary example is the spectacular collapse of the hedge fund long-term capital management, or LTCM.
I mean, if you looked at this firm on paper, it had every advantage you could possibly imagine. The partners had, as Buffett once said, an average IQ that was just off the charts. They had a combined 350 to 400 years of very specific, relevant experience. And they had hundreds of millions of their own money on the line. And yet, despite all of that genius, despite every conceivable edge, the firm completely imploded in 1998. It came so close to taking the entire global financial system down with it. It's the ultimate real-world proof of how incredibly smart people can do incredibly foolish things. So why did they fail? Well, according to Buffett, it wasn't a failure of intellect. It was a failure of character, of judgment. They had that exact behavioral flaw that you would bet against in the thought experiment. They risked everything that was important to them for something that, in the end, was completely unimportant. It was the ultimate shortable trait.
And all of this brings the lesson back home to a very powerful and personal conclusion. It's about recognizing the single most important asset that you will ever have control over.
You see, the real beauty of Buffett's framework is its simplicity and the power it gives back to you. The qualities you admire in others, honesty, integrity, generosity, those are all achievable. You can practice them. And the qualities you dislike, the ones you'd short, those are all avoidable. In the end, you are your own most important investment, and you have 100% control. And so, the real test is to turn this whole thought experiment inward. If you had to make that lifelong bet, would you bet on yourself? The qualities that will determine the answer to that question are not a matter of luck. They are a matter of choice. It's really just a question of which habits you decide to build, starting today.